Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Ow, I just punched my own ankle. Ow. Yeah, so welcome back to another episode of a tarot story. I'll be doing court cards again today. I'll be doing the kings. So the 4 kings. Speaking of kings, I actually made a video about the kings before. I made a video on the 4 kings in tarot, and I also used Dreaming Way Tarot, which is the deck I'll be using today. But the content will be very different, even though I'm just kind of using them, kind of talking about the same things and using the same cards, but it will be aligned with the tarot story theme, and also aligns with the format that I've been using. So speaking of format, just a little quick update. Originally, I thought I was going to end the series here. This is kind of like an intro series for people who want to study tarot, who wants like a fun and fresh perspective on how to connect themes together and how to work with the archetypes and symbols and that kind of stuff. And it could also just be like, if you're already deep into your tarot practice, this could be something, if you're just looking for a different perspective to reconnect with the cards, So I made this series for that, just because I'm in love with storytelling, and this is definitely something just very close to my heart, and it's kind of how I approach tarot cards. But yeah, I'm definitely thinking of adding a few categories, just because I've been working on this ebook. So I actually was working on a longer ebook that was going to be like my tarot book, like the tarot book. And then I thought I really want to encapsulate some of those things, some of the bigger themes, and I want to create like a free ebook, like a shorter version of it, like a more concise version, just so people could have access to how I approach tarot, kind of get to know me and who I am as a tarot reader and my tarot worldview, I guess. So I started working on that. Originally, I intended for it to be like a quick 20-25 paged ebook / e-guide with exercises, activities, and approaches to tarot and resources, but I guess I'm incapable of being concise when it comes to tarot. It just turned into like this 50-page monster, and then it's really text heavy. It's lots of good stuff, but I will let you guys know more about that later. Just letting you know that I will be putting out a free ebook just maybe in a couple of weeks, because I just finished a draft, my second draft, and then I need to do all the formatting and copy editing and everything. I'm also trying to insert some images before it gets too crazy with just like blocks of text and all. Yeah, so just need some time to organize it and put it together. But anyhow, back to today's topic, which is the kings of tarot, the court cards. So yeah, I'll be using the Dreaming Way Tarot. I'll just quickly show you the box. This is awesome. I think I want to purchase a second deck, like a second Dreaming Way, just in case something happens to this one. And plus, I just want to have another one because it's so awesome. But yeah, so just talking about kings as a whole. So kings as an element and also as a class. As an element, king represents fire. So fire, I feel personally, it's all about identity. It's about asserting yourself through your desires and expressing your desires and pursuing those desires. Kind of just like expressing yourself through your actions and through what you create. So it has a very sort of self vibe. That's why a lot of times when I talk about wands or the court cards from the wand suit, I often mention that they could be a little bit narcissistic and they could get a little bit selfish. It is because of this is kind of the nature of the element. Fire seeks to burn, right? Fire is kind of just this singular energy that burns and sustains itself. Well, it needs something to burn on, scientifically speaking, but you know what I mean. Fire is really just the essence of self, I feel. So yeah, that's what the king is about. The king is when the, depending on the base element, right? Depending on if it's King of Wands or King of Cups, but kings as a class, they represent the element of fire, and I feel like this is when their base element, when their original element is trying to express themselves through their desires and through the things that create and through how they sort of create more of itself, because fire seeks to burn. Fire spreads, right? Fire seeks to spread. So when it comes to the kings, it's about the 4 elements and how the 4 elements express themselves in a way that sort of through the lens and the class of the king, through how they expand on their kingdom, how they sort of interact with people, how they project authority over others and how they sort of provide leadership, you know, how they lead others in this in the direction that they want, which is, you know, which can be different depending on their element. But yeah, in a nutshell, kings represent authority, leadership, the mastery, the full mastery of that element, and it also kind of creates different interesting dynamics when it's combined with other elements. Anywho, sorry this intro is kind of long, but yeah, so let's start with the King of Wands. So I will show you Dreaming Ways King of Wands. Okay, so Dreaming Ways King of Wands is pretty cool. He's like really cocky. He's just sitting on his chair, and I think when it comes to the King of Wands, his element, he's pure fire, right? He's fire of fire. So King of Wands, he's just brimming with power. I feel like his keyword is power. He's just manifestation itself. Just by being himself, just by sort of displaying his presence, he has the ability to affect his environment, also affect the people around him, just through his presence. Like his sheer presence alone is able to affect others and able to manifest things. It's like, you know, he's a self-sustaining guy. Like, you know, just by being himself, just by being in his character, just by displaying his personality, he can attract followers, because he's that ideal that everybody wants to embody. He's that figure that people look up to, you know, because he's just so awesome, and then people are like, I want to be exactly like him, or I want to be near him so I could share his awesomeness and get some of that godly fire vibe just onto my aura, so I could just shine as brightly as he does. So he doesn't even need to try. He's just naturally charismatic. He's naturally just very, very just brimming with personality. He knows exactly what he wants, and he's not afraid to express it, and people just find that very attractive. And people gravitate towards him because he, in my notes I wrote down, he's basically the sun in the solar system. He has his own gravity, you know. He can sustain his gravity alone, his presence alone is able to drive the forces of the planets, you know, like people surround him and gravitate towards him like that. People rely on him because of the light he gives off. So he's kind of like the center of the universe type of guy. Speaking of which, if he falls into his shadow side, I say this to all, like about all the wands, like Queen of Wands, Page of Wands. Wands tend to be very self-centered. When it's like sort of like in the positive light, it means that they're very assertive. They're not afraid to express what they want. They're not afraid to pursue what they want. When it's in the negative light, especially with King of Wands, he has the biggest ego in all the court cards. I feel he has the biggest ego ever. And then when he falls into his shadow side, he's extremely narcissistic to the point that it could turn into some kind of he gets very, very manipulative. He becomes so incredibly manipulative because it's so easy for people to love him, and then I feel like he could almost be like a really sort of twisted religious leader, where he could inspire all these religious fervor for God or for something, or for some kind of ideal, for something more abstract. You know, King of Swords is kind of more about rules and principles, so he could be like a dictator. You know, he's more like if he falls into his shadow side, it's more like a dictator or a dystopian situation. But King of Wands, he is more like, I can just think of like something, I can't think of any examples, but if you look at movies, it'll just be, I think he would fulfill the role of being like a religious, charismatic religious leader. The Sparrow from Game of Thrones. If you know what I'm talking about, he kind of just like, he could sort of just infect people with what he wants to achieve and that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's King of Wands. So speaking of King of Swords, speaking of King of Swords, I like the depiction of King of Swords in Dreaming Way, because on his chair or throne you can see like tiny pictures or details of clockwork on his chair, and then he's kind of holding a sword, and he's like positioned like that, as in like he's very sharp, he's very principled, he's thinking, and then he could leap into action anytime. So King of Swords is swords people, they're generally pretty rigid, and King of Swords is even more so, because King of Swords represents order and system, and he would, you know, like I was saying before, he would totally be a dystopian kind of supreme ruler type of guy if he falls into his shadow side. But I think when you're on when he's in his light aspect, I think he can be he's a king who's very knowledgeable. He understands the laws of physics, he understands how things work, and he understands society, he understands people, he understands the philosophies. He's really good at analyzing things, and he's just a mental powerhouse. Like, yeah, it's what I wrote down, mental powerhouse. And he the way he rules, the way he oversees his kingdom is like clockwork. He wants to position all the strategies and puts things in the right places so they could work in harmony. So one thing could contribute to another thing, and then one thing could be like the cause or effect for another thing. Everything has to be perfect. Like everything, it has to be systematic, it has to be down to the T, and everything has to sort of fulfill its function and purpose. It has to have like a meaning behind it, because King of Swords can't tolerate meaningless things. It's like, if you see something just like a random piece of screw, and he would be like, so how does this fit into the system? It doesn't work, so it must be eliminated. So that's why he can be very black and white and very extreme at times, because his kingdom would be very, very orderly. Everyone would sort of follow the rules. Yeah, his kingdom, I feel like it would have very tough laws, kind of like Singapore. You would get fined if you sort of just randomly toss like a piece of chewing gum on the ground. And that's why their streets are so clean, because the laws are so, I wouldn't say harsh, but there's just so many laws and rules in place to kind of keep the order of the city and everything. So I feel like that's sort of that's very King of Swordsy. If that's even an adjective. Yeah, he would enact and enforce really effective laws to make sure everything is in order, and he's not very good at compromising, as I've said. Basically, the rules and the laws cannot be broken. The rules are there so that we can, you could approach life in a way that's fair for everybody. And yeah, speaking of fairness is something that's very important for him. So that's why he wants to create a system that enables everyone to contribute, and it enables everyone to make sure everything is fair and in order. So when he falls into his shadow side, I already talked about this, he will basically be like a dystopian leader, and then it's not very humanitarian. Human rights out the window, doesn't care as long as the system prevails, as long as system is correct. Like, he would be someone who's like, it's like, he will be someone, if he disagrees with you, he would actually just forcibly force his views upon you, which is a dystopian society. Kind of like the Giver, right? It's like, what's the point of having all these differences if that's going to create conflict? So they just, in the world of the Giver, everyone is just the same. Nobody sees any colors. Everybody is born into a role. They are selected to play a role in society. Their jobs are selected for them, their schedules and everything is determined for them. If everybody is the same, then there would be no conflicts. But as we all know, then that removes individuality, that removes creativity, and basically the colors that makes human experience so vibrant. So King of Swords, definitely a force to be reckoned with, as with all the kings, really. So when it comes to the King of Cups, he's a very interesting character because he has both fire and water in him. So I feel like when it comes to his, his base element or his core element, which is water, because he's the King of Cups, water, he's someone who's very gracious. He really cares about the relationships that he builds and the relationships that he's enabled or he's helped build. So he really cares about how people relate to each other. He cares about the happiness of others. He cares a lot about social harmony. So the things that he would really he would really devote a lot of time and energy and resources into cultivating good relationships. Sometimes it's not even about himself, because water is kind of like a selfless element. So King of Cups would be the type of king who cares about, like, King of Wands cares about his own visions and ideals. King of Swords cares about rules and order and the laws. King of Cups cares about his people. So people is really his sort of, like his core desire, his core identity. He really wants harmony and happiness for his people, and he really wants to build the relationships and the, you know what I mean? Like, that's why a lot of times King of Cups is associated with charity work, or doing a lot of going to a third world country to build a school or something to kind of enrich the community, to bring people to bring education and happiness to a part of the world that normally don't have access to those things. Well, not happiness, specifically, but having that kind of structure is what I mean. So a King of Cups cares a lot about that, and as a result, he's kind of selfless, right? He cares about the people around him, so he would be very focused on that. But at the same time, he's also ruled by the element of fire, which means that he, as a king, he also wants himself to be known. He's very paradoxical, because at one point he wants to harmony and he wants to cultivate all the good relationships around him, but at the same time he's also craving a really personal, enriching, like soul deep relationship with somebody, you know, like a personal relationship. And I feel like he's constantly torn because he wants to make everybody happy, he wants to please everybody. Not as in like a people pleaser, he wants to create happiness in people's lives. But at the same time, I think it depends how his life plays out and depends on the decisions he makes. But King of Cups type, or a King of Cups, would be definitely someone who he's very paradoxical because he wants to cultivate happiness in other people's relationships and help them build happier relationships and more meaningful and better relationships and well-being. And at the same time, he's also driven by this individuality, the individuality of fire, and he craves that personal connection. So I think, yeah, like I said, it depends on how the decisions that he makes. He could be either just he loses himself to all this charity work that he's doing and it forgets about himself, and he could maybe suffer from loneliness, and he would really be craving that kind of personal relationship, but at the same time he can't really distinguish what his own needs are. So I feel like he could be a very conflicted person if he doesn't integrate his archetype well. But yeah, that's King of Cups. He really cares about you. Everything he does is out of love. His presence is just brimming with love, and if you're around him, I think he will make you feel very welcome and very warm. He will make you feel like you're validated, you're needed in this life. And yeah, I think that's kind of the gravity of King of Cups. His gravity is that he's anchored in love and his desire to make people happy. Last but not least, we have the King of Pentacles. So I always say like he's like the business guy, but I think he's definitely more than that. He cares about abundance and wealth. So when it comes to his kingdom, he would care about the economy the most, because he cares about, you know, building up the economy, building up the community, engaging in trade, sharing resources and that kind of thing. So he cares about the physical expansion and growth of his kingdom, things that he can feel and touch with his hands. So anything that could really like, for example, like land, how many sheep that they have, you know, this is kind of in the medieval context, how many acres of land that they have, how much is the annual harvest. And like the King of Cups, he's a very gracious king, but he's gracious in the way that if, say, you're a lord serving under his name, he would make sure you have the proper number of acres or land that is suitable for your title as a lord. Kind of like he would sort of I think status is very important for him. He really cares about how those things can represent a person's power, but not in a superficial way, in the way that showing, like, having those resources kind of is a reflection, not like, I think having his subjects sort of just having those resources is a reflection of his graciousness. It's a reflection of how abundant his country is, or his kingdom is as a whole. This is kind of like a little side note for King of Pentacles. He's very festive. He's really into celebrations and rituals and festivals. You know, he will probably be throwing like tons of cultural festivals for his people, just because it would be something that kind of honors their tradition. It would be something that sort of honors how far they've come as a group of people, how much they've grown, how much resources or wealth they have assembled. And I think that's very important for the King of Pentacles, because he always cares deeply about the community, because Pentacles, of course, is the element of earth, and earth speaks to community and traditions and the ties between people, like the physical ties between people, which is tradition and culture. So he's very festive, and I think he's also very hardy. Like, he's good at striking a bargain. You know, he's very generous with rewards, and I think he believes his subjects appearance, you know, things like land holding, resources shared. It, like I said, it reflects his title as a king, and it reflects his status as a king. It's like if he feels rich when his people are rich, so that's when he's on his good side. And also, this is another side note, he always dresses to impress, like always, just like Thranduil from Lord of the Rings or from The Hobbit. Yeah, so, well, when he falls into his shadow side, greed, one word, just greed. Greed, hoarding, he will probably be the shitty king that has like just jaw-droppingly high taxes for his people, and then he would just be like, what's that king's name from Robin Hood, the Disney version, by the way, like the Tiger King who's just squeezing his people dry just because he wants everything for himself. So that would be like the King of Pentacles if he's like, you know, if you get to his bad side, if he falls onto his shadow side. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this video. What do you think about the kings? Do you have a different interpretation than I am? Do you love Dreaming Way, or is there like, you know, like another tarot deck that you absolutely love with really great portrayals of court cards, of kings in particular? So let me know in the comments below, and let me know if you have questions. I guess I never really asked that before. And yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Until next time, be the hero of your own story. I will see you next time. I said that already. Whoosh.